Tonight, the fatal shooting in South Carolina all started with a traffic stop for a broken taillight. Black residents of North Charleston, they've been complaining for years about frequent police stops and overly aggressive policing. Does this start with stop and frisk, and has that approach outlived its usefulness? Then, we've known for a while that Hillary Clinton was running for president. No breaking news there. But now we know that she'll be announcing it for real this Sunday. She's doing it on social media. Why is she doing it on a weekend with a video? Then, as we speak, the NRA getting together here at their convention in Nashville, Tennessee, but they're getting a little gun shy. The guys who want guns in schools, bars, churches, and just about everywhere else are disarming the guns at their own gun show. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to RFL. I'm Richard French. We're going to get to the South Carolina police shooting in a minute, but first, I wanted to show you this video from San Bernardino, and many of you may not have seen it, but it is getting a ton of attention from California. What you'll see transpire over this, and the details I should say are sketchy at this moment, but this is what we know so far. At the end of this, where you see one young man on the ground, 10 deputies are now on paid leave, a criminal investigation has been opened up. After this beating of a suspect was caught on tape, chopper video from a news chopper out in California captured this all, but when it was all said and done, literally deputies were pulling one another off so they could get a turn at either kicking or punching the guy that was already detained on the ground. At the conclusion of it, some are saying the video even worse than the Rodney King beating here, but we will see how this all plays out. And again, this is a suspect in an identity theft investigation that preempted what would ensue. The man was sent to a hospital, but his condition not known at this moment here. Trust me, you're going to be seeing a lot more about this video, but it's the latest flashpoint in a growing conversation. And we go to that conversation, as we know, in South Carolina, which dominated the headlines this week. A new witness to the fatal police shooting of Walter Scott has just emerged. Here, she explains what she saw.
No, it wasn't on the ground rolling. It was like a tussle type of thing, like, you know, like, what do you want, or what did I do type of thing.
And that shooting could be a byproduct, many say, of what has been going on for a while in that community and many other communities, but in that community specifically here, by aggressive police tactics that all started with stop and frisk. And we know the genesis of that policing program, in fact, came here in New York, and then it spread nationally. After all, Walter Scott, he was pulled over for a busted taillight, and then things escalated, and then 8 shots later to the back, he was dead. This New York Times article tells a story, again in North Charleston, and it highlights how largely minority residents there felt targeted for a long time by a mostly white police force, even though about half the population was African American and 80% of the police force was white. It's a situation many communities around the country deal with right now. Here in New York, Police Commissioner Bill Bratton, he's been, in fact, the initiator and still a staunch supporter of the program of stop and frisk, and he had this to say about it, saying to the New Yorker at the time, "It's a basic fundamental tool of police work in the whole country. If you do away with stop and frisk, this city will go down the chute as fast as anything you can imagine." Well, the numbers don't seem to bear it out. And this chart tells the story. Crime has been falling dramatically in New York, and it's been falling for years now. That's happening even though the number of stop and frisk have plunged from a high of 700, nearly 800,000, to just 40,000. So it certainly appears that even though the numbers have been reduced in terms of this policing tactic, the crime rate, you would have thought, according to both the campaign from Joe Lhota and certainly even from prior law enforcement, that it'll go through the roof, but it hasn't. In fact, it's reduced as well without those tactics. All right, I want to bring in our panel right now and talk about where we are right now and also this procedure. Dominic Carter, political journalist and author. C. Scott Vanderhoff, attorney and former Rockland County executive many times over. And Andrew Whitman, senior political correspondent. Dom, you covered when this policing tactic was a major part of the campaign with Rudy Giuliani and then Bratton at the time, who was his commissioner, albeit short-lived. It continued through various administrations, even a progressive mayor with Mayor Bloomberg. And it wasn't eliminated completely even under this current mayor. So do we know enough with real math to say it may have had its place at one time, but its time is come and gone, or not?
I don't know. That's a very tough question, Richard. And if its time has come and gone, then what replaces it? That's the big question here. I know that City Hall's been putting these numbers out, but I don't buy that they've gone down. It doesn't pass the smell test from 700,000 all the way down to 40,000 stops. It just doesn't pass.
But you know a lot of officers
right,
weren't
which
crazy
means they're
about
just
it.
not
Some
doing.
were
They're
under
just
quotas.
not. They're just
The
not doing
quotas
the
are gone
paperwork.
now.
They're not doing the paperwork. That's all that means. But if you think they stop doing stop and frisk, that's ridiculous.
Well, even the NYCLU, who has been the biggest one who's banging the drum on this, you covered the trial, that this was basically, this procedure was on trial. They've said that there's been a huge drop in this, and they've pointed to the crime rate as evidence that you don't need this to have a safe city. I guess my question has always been, I've had black law enforcement officials who've been critical of it, but still said it had its place. But I never understood, and no one gave me a good answer, Scott, about how you can have the policy, but then expect rank and file to know when to use it, when not to, how to exercise which discretion, how it doesn't become abused, how certain commanders will say you got to deliver a certain number here with a quota and certain ones won't. Either you have it or you don't. I don't know how you can be half pregnant with this.
Well, I mean, there's a ripeness for abuse. There's no question about that. But I think Dominic's absolutely 100% right. I mean, in terms of statistics, you're not seeing the crime rates because we're not doing the stop and frisk to find the crime. And frankly, what's happening is more drugs are passing hands, things are happening, and we don't have the same kind of coverage we had before. But your point, and I think the point that we all worry about, is racial profiling, going after people who are innocent and who shouldn't be. I mean, there has to be a clear training
Different zip
mechanism.
code, different justice. They're not coming to stop and frisk you and me or pat us down, all right? I speak for myself.
I haven't been yet, except for coming on the show here tonight. But I think there's a tremendous amount of leeway there for abuse by police. And of course, the last couple of things we've seen, you really become very concerned about police
And
abuse.
trust me, you know this, guys. Andrew, I could have shown 20 other videos.
Sure.
I mean, all around the country, suburbs, cities, where you got commonalities of who's there. But there was a story today, Andrew. It wasn't just the taillight. There was a woman who told a story in North Charleston where she was walking one way on the side of the street, decided to turn around and go another direction, middle-aged African-American woman. Police went up there and said, "Where are you going? Why'd you turn around? What are you doing?" And they stopped her. Now that 5-minute encounter is going to leave a scar where that person's going to say, "Time out. They didn't stop this guy. They stopped me because in America, I can't turn around on the street because she forgot something and went to go do an errand." And that will pollute and cloud the relationship or the perception of the police. I think it'll change if they'll be a cooperating eyewitness if they happen to see anything else because it's there. I don't know how you quantify that, but I think that's as much of this conversation as anything else, is the lingering, really bruises here that this policy's had for so long, even if it had the best of intentions when it started.
I agree, and I think a lot of people feel like the cops can probably find something on you if they want to, no matter who you are or what the color of your skin is or what you're doing at any particular time. And it's not... There's a lot of this happening, whether it's stop and frisk in New York or broken windows in New York, or these smaller crimes like he had 2 of 3 taillights that were working. It was the middle taillight in the back of his car that wasn't working.
I'm just surprised there actually was something wrong with the taillight.
But that's an excuse because police want to then use that as an opportunity to check and see if there's something else that's going wrong.
That's the key word. I don't want to cut you off. No. That's the key word. And that's where the problem is in the black community. People are not stupid. They know that cops, and I want you to continue, Andrew, they know that police officers are looking for a reason to stop you for anything, to run you through the system, meaning to check you through the computer system. Because if there's a warrant, court appearance, you miss whatever, that means overtime for them, arresting you, and that's where a lot of the problem comes in at, Richard, because people are not stupid.
And whether it's genuinely in the name of public safety or whether it's, as we saw in Ferguson, for profiteering,
Go with it.
raising money that's offsetting cuts that the police would otherwise and the city would otherwise not have.
But
the question becomes, what's the cost?
But to me, I think part of this is, if people say, "Oh, it's not about the policies," it is. If you're a cop, I'm just trying to say I'm a patrolman for a second, okay? And the dictum from City Hall of Police Plaza is, you know what? Quality of life. No more graffiti over there. No more guys with the squeegees. No more any of this. Remember how this all started, right? I mean, you were covering it, Dom. Then the message to them is, don't let anything slide. The more that everybody sees that you can't loiter, you can't do this, you can't do that, that'll have an impact on the bigger crimes. And then guys can't be hanging around dealing on the corner. So cops are following the dictum. It becomes ingrained here. It's all but trained when they're going through the academy. So then they go there, and now they're all of a sudden supposed to say, hey guys, I don't want to see, nobody gets to throw trash on the sidewalk here, but don't be profiling or whatever else. You got to almost unwind the clock here, because I do think it starts with the policy.
You are correct, Richard. I agree with your assessment. But there's a part B to that. I mean, these officers are just not thrown onto the job. They've grown up watching television. And what do the TV shows show more often than not? Who's the criminals on the TV show? And also, we in the black community have to accept responsibility for the high rate of crime within our community. And so, yes, the pressure comes from City Hall on down. Listen, if you don't make these amount of stops, these amount of arrests, you're a bad cop. And then the stereotype that's in the cop's head, whether they're white, black, Asian, Latino, it doesn't matter, of who's committing the crime.
But you know what? I agree. And this is an outrage. I mean, it's outrageous watching that videotape. I hate to watch it. I mean, it really is outrageous. On the other hand, North Charleston has one of the highest criminal crime rates in the entire country. I mean, so you've got this, it's not to excuse anything, but it has a high crime rate. And to your point, Dominic, when do you start dealing with that? How do you deal with that, Richard? I mean, you've got it there. You've got to start somewhere. And it has nothing to do with this particular cop. It's a very tough community.
But you know what? You're right. Except I thought one thing today when I'm reading that story in the Times about North Charleston. And I thought for a second, if it was my wife or my mother who a cop in broad daylight, because she decided to turn around because she forgot something in the store, put her on a wall and patted her down, I'd lose my mind. And the fact that that's considered a regular reality in that area because that's the way we police, you can't do that without expecting that there's going to be all this pent-up stuff. So then when you see a video about the guy looking to throw a taser after he shoots somebody 8 times in the back when he runs away, that's what sets these bonfires out. And that's what, listen, I believe there should be equity and goodness in mankind, but I'm worried about the tension that's also building up, that's looking for a place to go. And these things are just, ready to just put accelerant on it. And I really think we got to be really careful here. And
Richard,
obviously, we're going to
take a
talking.
break.
Yeah.
But just one question for you, honestly, for any of you guys: have you ever seen a white woman up on a wall being patted down by police? I've never seen it in my life. Ever.
Yep.
Ever.
All right. I want you to get involved in this conversation. And please, if you think for a second this is just a North Charleston problem in South Carolina, we haven't been paying attention here. Go to Facebook and Twitter and sound off on our question. And it has to do with a policy that I think puts everybody in a box in this here. And I'm thinking about law enforcement too, guys. So if you're a member of the force, please, there's a platform for everybody here. Has stop and frisk time come and gone? We're going to get to more of your reaction in an upcoming show. But when we come back, we'll switch gears to politics. And we know Hillary Clinton's running. No big surprise, as I said. She's announcing, though, this weekend on a Sunday, middle of the day, with a video on social media. We're going to ask the question, why?